Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Event Impact 360, our YouTube channel.
Yes, welcome back.
Today, we're going to be diving deep into an attack that recently happened at a Tesla service center in Las Vegas.
Yeah, this one's got some pretty crazy details. You might have seen some headlines about it already.
Yeah, I think a lot of people saw those initial reports, but we've actually gone through the official police briefing on this. So we're going to be bringing you kind of a focused look at how this whole thing went down.
Exactly. We're going to be looking at what happened, how they caught the suspect so fast, and also some of the early details that are starting to come to light.
Sounds good.
All right, so this all started early Tuesday, March 18th.
Okay.
About 2:45 in the morning.
Oh, wow. Early.
Yeah, at a Tesla collision and sales center.
Okay.
So our goal today is to really break down what happened when it happened. And we're also going to look at what challenges the investigators faced because they started off with very limited information.
Yeah, I was reading about that. It seemed like they had barely anything to go on initially.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that. And then how technology actually played a role in catching the suspect so quickly.
Technology is always a big factor these days.
For sure. And of course, we'll be talking about the suspect himself and some of the early connections that they're investigating.
So let's start with just the basics of the attack. What do we know for sure about what happened?
All right. So the suspect is a 36-year-old Asian male named Paul Kim.
Okay.
And he's facing a whole slew of charges, like over a dozen felony charges.
Wow, over a dozen.
Yeah, and they're serious. We're talking 3 counts of arson, 3 counts of unlawful possession of explosives, incendiary devices.
Okay.
4 counts of property destruction, and get this, 5 counts of discharging a firearm into a vehicle or structure.
That is a lot of charges.
I know, right?
Yeah.
It really shows how severe this whole thing was.
For sure. So can you walk us through, like, step by step how this attack actually happened? Like, what did this guy do?
Okay, so he shows up east of where the Tesla place is in a black sedan. And you can see on the surveillance footage, he walks towards the building.
Okay.
But like completely disguised. Head to toe, black clothing.
Wow.
A mask covering his face, gloves, the whole 9 yards.
So sounds like he didn't want to be identified.
Oh, absolutely. This was planned out.
So what's the first thing he does when he gets to the Tesla building?
So he goes straight for the security, right?
Okay.
Takes out his rifle, at least it looks like a rifle in the footage, and starts shooting at the surveillance cameras. Takes out at least 2 of them.
So he's disabling their security right off the bat.
Exactly. And then, I don't know if this means anything, but he spray paints the word resist across the front doors.
Resist. Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, could be a clue to his motive. We can talk more about that later.
Yeah, I think we'll need to unpack that word resist a little bit.
For sure. But anyway, after the cameras and the graffiti, he goes straight for the Tesla vehicles.
Okay, so this is where the real damage starts.
Oh, yeah. Starts shooting into multiple cars.
Yeah.
And then, to make things even worse, he pulls out Molotov cocktails and sets several of them on fire.
Molotov cocktails. Like, he actually made those himself.
Looks like it, yeah. It's pretty crazy.
That's a big jump from just, like, damaging the cars.
Totally. And the damage was serious. 5 vehicles damaged in total, 3 of them completely destroyed by the fires.
Yikes. What does the security footage show? Like, how does he act during all of this?
It's chilling, actually. He's super methodical about it, like moving between the cars. At one point, he puts his backpack down, takes a shot, then uses one of the Molotov cocktails. It's all very deliberate.
Sounds like he had a plan and he stuck to it.
Totally. And you know what's interesting? One of the Molotov cocktails didn't go off.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, investigators were able to recover it.
So, potentially more evidence for them.
Exactly. Could be some good forensic leads there.
So let me get this straight. The police arrive. There are cars on fire, graffiti, a live explosive device, and the suspect's long gone.
Pretty much. He took off in that same black sedan he arrived in.
Talk about a chaotic scene. What did the investigators have to work with in those first few hours? Like, what clues did they have to go on?
You're not going to believe this, but they basically had nothing.
Nothing. Come on.
I'm serious. They had a grainy photo of what they thought was his car.
Okay, but what about, like, fingerprints or witnesses or something?
Yeah. Ooh, they had a photo of the suspect himself, but you can barely make out any details. And then a couple of shots of the headlights and taillights of the car.
So a blurry photo and some lights. Not much to go on.
Seriously. That was it. Very little is how they described it in the briefing.
And yet they caught him in 8 days.
I know, right? It's remarkable. That's a testament to just how hard these guys worked.
So how did they do it? I mean, 8 days from practically no information to an arrest, that seems almost impossible.
It was a massive team effort. The FBI was involved, obviously.
Okay.
Then you have the Joint Terrorism Task Force.
And that is?
It's basically a bunch of different agencies that work together to combat terrorism.
Okay, makes sense.
Then you have the LVMPD counterterrorism section.
So the Las Vegas Police Department's own counterterrorism unit.
Right. And then they had a bunch of fusion center partners, too.
Fusion Center partners. I haven't heard that term.
It's basically like centers where different agencies share intelligence.
Oh, okay. So like a central hub for information sharing.
Exactly. So you've got all these groups working together, sharing information, trying to track this guy down.
So a massive coordinated effort.
Mm-hmm.
But what was the breakthrough moment? What led them to the suspect?
Okay, so the first big break was they figured out what kind of car he was driving.
Okay.
A black Hyundai Elantra.
Okay, but how did they even figure that out?
Well, it was a huge effort. They went through tons of surveillance footage, analyzed every piece of data they could find, and get this, they canvassed over 700 locations across Las Vegas.
700. Wow.
Yeah.
Just looking for this car.
That's right. It was a massive undertaking.
So old school police work, going door to door.
In a way, yeah. But they also had some high-tech help.
Okay, tell me about the tech side of things. What kind of tools did they use?
Well, the first big clue came from these things called license plate readers.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of those.
Right. Specifically, they used a system from a company called Flock Technologies.
Okay.
And these things are amazing. They take pictures of license plates and the whole car.
Right.
And then the police can search through that database for specific vehicles.
Makes sense.
And in this case, it wasn't just the license plate. The system was able to tell them the exact model of the car and even some specific features about it.
So that narrowed down the search considerably.
Oh, absolutely. It was a huge lead.
Wow. License plate readers. You don't think about them much, but they can be incredibly useful for investigations.
Totally. But that wasn't the only tech they used.
Okay, with us.
They used Skydio drones to get an aerial view of the crime scene.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and then they have this whole digital forensics lab where they can analyze cell phones, computers, all that stuff.
Right.
And of course, they were looking at public safety cameras all over the city.
Trying to piece together his movements.
Exactly. Plus, they have these tools that can scan social media for any mentions of the incident or the suspect.
So combing the internet for clues.
Yeah, pretty much. And then, of course, there's good old-fashioned DNA analysis.
Right. Fingerprints, DNA, that kind of stuff.
Exactly.
So they had all these different tools and techniques working together. It sounds like a really complex operation.
No, for sure. It was a huge effort.
So let's talk about Paul Kim, the suspect. Once they identified him, what did they do?
Well, once they had a name and a face, they put him under 247 surveillance.
So they had eyes on him at all times.
Yep. They had specialized units tracking his every move.
Wow.
It was all about public safety, making sure he didn't do anything else.
Right.
And, of course, they were building their case, gathering more evidence.
So how did they finally make the arrest?
Well, eventually they got a warrant to search 2 cars that were linked to him
Okay.
and his apartment.
And what did they find?
Oh, a whole bunch of stuff. Multiple rifles, a shotgun, a handgun,
Wow.
and a bunch of gun parts, ammunition of all different calibers.
Okay.
Including, importantly, the caliber used in the shooting at the Tesla Center.
So that's a pretty direct link.
Oh, yeah. And then they found all these electronic devices, phones, laptops, stuff like that.
Which could have all sorts of evidence on them.
Exactly. And here's another interesting detail. They found a black gun belt with a pouch on it.
Okay.
And inside the pouch, there was pink paint residue.
Pink paint? Wait, like the resist graffiti?
That's what they're thinking. And then they found a black backpack, also with pink paint on it.
So that connects them to the vandalism, too.
Yeah, seems like it. They also found face masks and clothing that matched what he was wearing in the security footage.
So they're building a really strong case against him at this point.
For sure. And then, of course, there was the DNA evidence.
Like a buccal swab they took.
Exactly. And it matched the DNA they found at the scene.
So that's pretty conclusive.
Oh, yeah, no doubt he was there.
So with all this evidence, what are they saying about his motive? Like, why would he attack a Tesla service center?
Well, that's where things get a little murky. They've been looking at his social media, and they've found some connections to certain groups.
Okay, like what?
Well, there's the Communist Party USA social media group,
Okay.
and then some groups with names like Revolutionary Communist International, Hidden Palestine, Palestine Action, things like that.
So some pretty politically charged groups.
Yeah, but here's the thing. They're describing these ties as very loose.
So not necessarily a member, but maybe just following them online or something?
Right. It's not clear how involved he was with any of these groups.
So they're still trying to figure out his exact motivations.
Exactly. They're digging deeper into these connections to see if there's anything more to it.
So it's still an active investigation?
Oh, absolutely.
But as of right now, do they think he was working with anyone else?
No. Their current thinking is that he acted alone, at least in Las Vegas. They haven't identified any other suspects locally.
But they're still looking into those broader connections, right?
Yeah, they're definitely keeping an open mind. In fact, they've said they're looking for any similarities to other attacks that have happened around the country.
So trying to see if there's a bigger pattern.
Exactly. But for now, they're treating this as an isolated incident.
Okay, so let's fast forward to the arrest. When and where did they finally catch him?
They got him as he was leaving work.
Just going about his day.
Yep. And apparently he didn't put up any fight.
No resistance at all.
Nope. Just went peacefully.
So now he's in custody. What kind of legal trouble is he looking at?
Well, we already talked about all the state charges.
Right, the arson, weapons charges, all that.
Right. But on top of that, the feds have issued a warrant for his arrest too.
Oh, wow.
So he's probably going to be facing federal charges as well.
Like what?
They mentioned federal arson charges and possession of a destructive device.
Because of the Molotov cocktails.
Yes.
So this isn't just a local case anymore. It's a federal case as well.
Right. It's a big deal.
And what about the people in Las Vegas? Are they safe? What are the authorities saying about the security situation?
Well, they've said that based on what they know right now, they don't think there's any ongoing threat from this guy.
Okay, so no reason to panic.
Right. But they're still taking precautions. They've beefed up security around Tesla locations.
Makes sense.
And they've also increased security at those boring company tunnels they have along the strip.
Those underground tunnels Elon Musk built.
Yep, those ones. So they're definitely on high alert.
Good to know they're taking it seriously. So we've talked about the attack, the suspect, the investigation. But one thing that really stands out to me is the role of technology in all of this.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This case shows just how important technology is for law enforcement these days.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, they caught this guy in 8 days, starting with almost no information.
I know, right? It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And a lot of that comes down to how they use technology.
So let's break that down a bit. What were the key technologies that helped them crack this case?
Well, we already talked about those license plate readers. Those were huge.
The flock system.
Yep. That gave them the first real lead.
Okay.
But they also used drones to get a better view of the scene.
Right, those Skydio drones.
And then they had their digital forensics lab where they could analyze all the electronic devices they found.
So pulling data from phones, computers, stuff like that.
Exactly. And they were using those public safety cameras all over the city.
Right.
Plus, they had those social media tools that could scan for any mentions of the suspect or the attack.
Trying to understand his online activity, his connections.
Yeah, and then of course you have the DNA technology that helped them confirm he was at the scene.
So it was a whole combination of things. Old school detective work combined with all this new technology.
Exactly. It's a real partnership between the old and the new.
Please subscribe to the channel and please like and share the video.
Yeah, and it shows the importance of collaboration too. You had all these different agencies working together, the LVMPD, the FBI, and a bunch of others.
A real team effort.
Absolutely. Over 250 people from 13 different agencies, all working together to solve this case.
Wow, that's incredible. So let's step back for a second and think about the bigger picture here. We have this attack, a suspect with some potentially troubling connections, and a really impressive investigation that used a combination of technology and old-fashioned police work. What does this all tell us?
I think it shows just how complex things are these days. You have someone who's clearly angry, maybe even radicalized, who decides to lash out in a really violent way.
And it's not just about stopping the immediate threat. It's also about understanding why it happened, what led this person to this point.
Yeah.
And that's where things get tricky.
Totally. I mean, those social media connections are fascinating. They're still being investigated, but it raises all sorts of questions about how online communities and ideologies can influence people's actions in the real world.
Right. It's not just about finding the guy. It's about understanding his mindset, his motivations.
And then you have the technology aspect. It's clear that law enforcement is getting really good at using technology to solve crimes.
Yeah, I mean, 8 days from a blurry photo to an arrest. That's remarkable.
I know, right? License plate readers, drones, digital forensics, it's all playing a role, and it's only going to get more sophisticated in the future.
So this case is almost like a glimpse into the future of law enforcement.
Yeah, I think so. It shows how technology is changing the game.
And it also shows the importance of collaboration. You had all these different agencies working together seamlessly.
Right, it was a real team effort. And that's going to be crucial in the future as well. As crime gets more complex and criminals get more tech savvy, law enforcement is going to have to adapt.
So for our viewers out there, what do you think the takeaway is from all of this?
I think it's a reminder that we live in a complicated world. Technology is constantly evolving, and that has implications for both good and bad.
It's a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
It can be used to solve crimes, but it can also be used to commit them.
Exactly. And then you have this whole issue of online radicalization, the influence of social media. It's something we all need to be aware of.
So it's a lot to think about. But ultimately, I think this case shows that law enforcement is up to the challenge. They're adapting, they're using technology effectively, and they're working together to keep us safe.
I agree. It's a reassuring message.
It is. Well, that's about all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Tesla Service Center attack.
Yeah, thanks for listening, everyone. Hopefully this gave you a better understanding of what happened and what it all means.
And as always, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis of major events.
And stay safe out there.
See you next time.